This year they have selected Ray to share his story with you. I know you'll give him your undivided attention and a warm GL welcome.
I used to have a job. I drove a truck for 10 years, but I lost my job. I couldn't find another job. We couldn't pay our rent anymore. That's when we had to move to a shelter. That's where we live now. I work hard there. I clean up when everybody leaves. And they bring me to give talks. Can I take my coat off? It's hot in here. I just wish people wouldn't laugh at me. People judge me. If they really knew me, they wouldn't do that. Can I say something else too? I know if I had nicer clothes, they told me if I didn't shake so much, maybe if I could talk better, if I could just be still for a little while, maybe you would begin to see me differently. You would begin to see that underneath the bad clothes and underneath the shaking and the hoarse voice, underneath this stuff, there is a person, a human being not so different than all of you. A person who deserves dignity and respect. A person who used to have dreams like all of you until something went terribly wrong. And so it is true. I'm not what you thought I was. My real name is John Grossman, and I'm coming to you from Chicago, Illinois this morning to first grab your attention. Have I done that so far? Cool. Everyone take a deep breath and chill out for a sec. I know that there are right now a lot of feelings, there are a lot of thoughts going on right now, I know. I do this a lot. I've been doing this for 13 years. I've now done this for more than 250,000 people in 13 different states. So I know that there's a lot of different feelings and thoughts right now. But let me tell you what I did not come to do. I did not come just to trick you here. An amateur actor could do what I just did. It doesn't take much effort to put on some bad clothes, to shake and do that funny voice you heard me do. An amateur actor can pull it off. But I didn't come to trick you. I've come way too long of a trip to trick you. What I have come to do is to teach an important lesson, one that you've heard hundreds of times in your life. You've heard this before. Never ever judge a book by its cover. But oh man, we still do it. Our parents say it, our teachers have said it, but we continue to judge people based upon their appearances, and I'm here to suggest to you that it's ruining our country. I'm here to suggest to you it's destroying people's lives. I'm here to suggest to you that as we continue to judge people before we ever get to know them, as we sell people short, we are cutting people off from the American dream, and that is just plain wrong. I'm here to say to you that if we were to respect people, give people their dignity, give people a chance, we'd have a better school. That everybody here deserves the same chance as everybody else. So here we go. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you stories. I'm going to tell you stories of what happens when you look different in our world and what we can do to change it. I said I've been doing this for a long time. I said I know there's feelings out here. So before I tell you my stories, and many of my stories are entertaining. I'm sure this will be one of the most interesting assemblies you ever have. I'm not a boring person. You may have figured that out by now. So some of my stories are funny. Feel free to laugh. Some of my stories are extremely sad. You'll be surprised at how awful some people treat each other in our society. But before I tell you my stories, I've got a question for everybody, and I'm hoping there's some brave people out here willing to answer my question. It's a simple question. Many of you at TIGS saw me, you knew what was coming. For those who don't know me, for those who have never seen me do this, then the first time you saw me was walking your hallways. The first time you saw me is when you came into this auditorium. So the question is simple. When you first looked at me, how did you feel inside? Will someone raise your hand and tell me, when you first saw me, how did you feel inside? Yes, sir.
Kind of felt bad for you.
That's all right. Watch the hands go up. How many people like this man here felt sad or felt bad for me when you first saw me? There was some pity there. You know what? Excellent. Can I tell you what? That means there's a lot of compassion here. Wonderful. Anybody have a different feeling besides sadness? Besides sadness. Yes, ma'am.
I thought you were great to went up there to speak in front of us. Okay.
Once in a while I get a response like that. Thank you. She said, I thought you were very brave to have the courage to come up and share your life with us. Thank you. Let me go the opposite of that. How many people here honestly were scared or nervous? Scared or nervous? It's okay if you were. Raise your hands up there. That's all right. You know what? Can I tell you what? If you were scared or if you were nervous, that's okay. That's pretty normal. In our crazy world, you have to be safe and you have to be cautious. But what I'm going to suggest to you is never again be judgmental. And there is a difference. Be safe. I'm not suggesting to you, you know what you should do at Christmas? Go find a homeless person, bring them home and surprise mom and dad at dinner time. Don't do that. I'm not saying do that. I'm not saying go hug every person you meet on the streets. That isn't right. There are times when you should be scared and you have to be cautious, but never judge people. Listen to me. If you're getting on a bus today after school and on the way to the bus you see 6 people chasing after you with axes above their heads, judge them to be very dangerous. Do not say, well, maybe I just got to get to know them a little bit. That would be very foolish. Be cautious, be safe, but never judge people. And some of you are laughing, I know, and for the wrong reason. Some of you are thinking to yourself, yeah, right, Grossman. Of course we should judge, and of course, especially homeless people. Those are a bunch of lazy people. Really? So, how many people here know someone personally who's lazy? Yeah. Can I tell you what? If laziness made you homeless, we'd all be in big trouble. Laziness doesn't make you homeless. It's more complicated than that. And here's one that really gets me. How many people here, when 9/11 occurred, in 2001, 9/11 occurred, how many of your families, sometime between then and now, put an American flag outside your home? Yeah. How many of you here actually know people serving in the military and are pretty damn proud of them? Good. And you should be. Are you proud of your country? Most people, are you proud of your country? I hope so. I hope there's a lot of pride for your country. Here's the sad truth. Here's the sad truth. 1 out of 3 homeless people in this country, 1 out of 3 people in our country who are homeless served your country in the military. You see, this country's weird. Oh yeah, we're proud of you when you go fight the war. Then we wave our flags. We sing patriotic songs. But my God, don't come back from that war missing a leg, because then we point at you and we laugh at you. Oh yeah, go fight the war, and we'll wave our flags and we'll say how proud we are of our country. But my God, don't come back up messed up mentally. Because if you land up on a street corner after that war, then we point, we laugh, and we think you're a lazy bum. How dare we? How dare we judge even homeless people before we ever know what happened to them? Never judge people before you've sat down and listened to their life, because you don't have a clue. We've got to stop judging people's worth based on what we see. What I've learned in my life is that our eyes sometimes lie to us. Our eyes take in information. We think about someone, then we have feelings before we ever know them. We've got to stop that. And by the way, I said mentally ill. It's not a joke. 40% of all homeless people, 40% of all homeless people in our country are mentally ill. How many people have seen Beautiful Mind? If you saw Beautiful Mind, then you know very well, if you ever get schizophrenia or anything close to it, you better pray to God that someone like he had in his life, someone is in your life shoving medication down your throat, because mentally ill people struggle with their meds. They struggle with medication because they don't know that they're not okay. They don't know that feeling of balance that most of you sitting here know. And here's another interesting fact. Guess what mentally ill people do who live on the streets? They drink alcohol. Too many mentally ill patients need to feel this normalcy, and when they drink alcohol, they think they are normal. I used to at least judge the people with a brown bag on the street. I don't even judge them anymore. Now when I pass by someone with a brown bag in their hands, I think, darn it. Maybe they've seen great pain in their life. Darn it. Maybe they have a mental problem, some illness, and they are drinking alcohol or using drugs so that they feel okay. Darn it, I wish we could have gotten to them. Please be safe and be cautious, but never again judge people until you get to know them, until you get to know them. I used to drive like this. I don't do it anymore. When I started this 13 years ago, I'd throw the costume on and then I'd drive to my destination. But it got to be too scary. As much as the people say they're too busy and they're going, man, you'd be surprised when I put that costume on how people stop and stare even in traffic. You'd be surprised how many people come up to me. They pull up next to me. I'll never forget the person who offered some different kind of sign language, different than what this woman is offering right now, and only used one finger to offer it. It was very interesting. And this person did it because of the way I looked. I stopped driving like that, especially since 9/11. This has been a very frightening costume to put on. I don't suggest it to many people. I had this costume on with a wireless mic like this. I was in a church. I give talks like this to corporations and to schools and to churches. I had a wireless mic on, sitting in a church ready to give my talk, until 5 people almost tackled me because they thought I was wired with a bomb and ready to blow up the church. We live in a very panic-ridden society where we're going to overreact. So I used to dress like this. I don't anymore. What I did is I pulled into your parking lot, and what I then did is put the costume on outside my car right in front of your flagpole and then came into school. But about 9 years ago, I was driving on a tollway. You know tollways, right? Yeah. Interesting. Yours is a little different than in my state. In the state of Illinois, we don't take a ticket first and then pay. We pay at every booth. We just pay at every booth, and there's booths constantly. And so I came to a toll booth that was about 40 cents. And so I had my wallet with me. I didn't have one of those easy passes. I got one now. I didn't have one of those easy passes. I didn't have change in my pocket. In Illinois, you can throw change in this little basket. You're like shooting hoops. You can shoot money into the basket. The gate opens, you leave. I didn't have, so I had to go where someone worked, right? I had money in my pocket, but I had that hat on. You saw my hat, right? No, it's bizarre. This hat makes people feel uncomfortable. I think that's funny. This hat makes people, you put this hat and these glasses on, but in the 1940s, this hat was cool. Some of your teachers, you know what I'm talking about. I bet some of you own a hat like this. How many of you have ever seen my favorite movie, Christmas Story? Oh yeah, you'll be watching it again. You check out Christmas Story, and every guy in the movie's wearing a hat like this. And it's cool. No one's like, oh my God, a geek, run! You know, everyone's wearing a hat like this, and it's totally cool. But you put it on today, and everyone thinks there's something wrong with you. I had a hat on and this, and I pull up to where someone's working in a toll booth. I roll down my window. It's 40 cents. I gave the lady the $1. She takes my $1. There seemed to be no problem taking my money. I got my hand out the window waiting for change, right? I should get 60 cents back. I'm waiting. She's staring at me. So I'm staring back, waiting for my 60 cents. And I'm like, oh, I get it. I got this costume. I understand. You're staring. I look different. That's fine. Finally, she takes my change. She throws it through my car window so she doesn't have to touch my hand to give me my change. What craziness that we live in. My God, I'm driving a car. I've got cash. I wasn't trying to bum something for free. And do I look that bad that I'm not worthy of touching my hand to give me change? In our world, homeless people are pushed aside, outcast of society. It's true. But I will tell you what, I know there are very few homeless people sitting in this auditorium right now. But you know what there are sitting in this auditorium, freshmen and sophomores? There are students sitting here who feel pushed aside. There are students here who feel like they are put down too often. There are students sitting here who don't get the same lucky breaks that everybody else here gets. Some of us can skate through 4 years of school with no problems and we just laugh our way through. And some of us here are having extreme painful experiences trying to make it through. There are people here getting bullied and pushed around. There are people who visibly, clearly are told they don't belong. And that's what I'm talking about today that must stop. How many people have ever said to their parents, don't judge my friends. Oh, you don't know my friends. Just because they pierce this part of their body. Just because they wear those clothes, just because they listen to that kind of music, just because they have that color of skin, just because their hair is a funky color today, just because their hair is sticking straight up in the air today, just because they got an extra bottle of gel going on. Don't judge my, how many people have ever said that to their parents? Something like, don't judge my friends, you don't know my friends. We've all said that. Many of us have said that. Can I tell you what, though? Sitting in this crowd today are too many hypocrites, though. Because you know what we sometimes do? I did it. We'll get on our parents' back. Don't judge my friends. Because we don't want to be judged. Oh, no, just because I'm Asian. Or just because I'm Irish. Or just because you fill in the blank. Just because. I don't want to be judged, but you know what we then do? We turn around and we face the other cliques. And we begin to tell them they don't belong. Oh, we want to belong. We want to be accepted. We want the respect of our peers. We want the respect of our teachers and the administration. But do we give that same respect to others? What I'm going to suggest to you is that if you want respect, you must earn it by giving it away first to others. I'll go and I'll talk to parent groups. I talk to a lot of parent groups or school districts. And I'll get a parent will stand up usually, or a teacher, and they'll say something to the effect of, what we have to do in our school is get rid of the cliques. And I'd be like, no, you don't. There's nothing wrong with a clique. You know what a clique is? A clique is simple. A small group of people with a similar interest. That's it. Isn't that what we try? In freshman year, we do all these special orientation programs. We do all these special things so freshmen can find a place here at the high school. And then we want to destroy the very groups that we wanted to have formed. There's nothing wrong with cliques. What is wrong is when one clique decides they are more important, more worthwhile than all the other groups. That's what has to stop at this school. We've got to end that kind of thinking. Otherwise, destruction occurs. I was in a middle school, and a 7th grade girl came up to me, and she thanked me for my talk. And then she was crying. And I said to the 7th grade girl, I said, why are you crying? She says, because I'm Pakistani. This was right after 9/11. She said, because I'm Pakistani and all the kids at my school tell me I have to go back home to Pakistan. Is that acceptable? Maybe some people think it is. I don't think it is, especially if you're Irish or Italian. You better not think it is. Otherwise, you are completely ignorant of your great-grandparents. See, when we tell a Pakistani person they have to go back home to their country, and by the way, she kept crying. She said, Mr. Grossman, my parents, they're American citizens. And I was born here. She said, I don't know where my home is anymore. If you're Irish or Italian and you say that kind of comment or you believe that kind of thought, you have forgotten where you come from. How many of you know that your ancestors came through Ellis Island? Then I'll give you an interesting website. If you haven't checked it out already, go to ellisisland.org. And if you know a few things about your ancestor, what you can see is their actual boat manifest. You can see your ancestor's signature on that boat manifest. You can see how much money they brought, from what country they came from, what city they came from, and what city they went to live with, and with whom they went to live with, and what religion. You'll find out all amazing things, and then you can actually print out the boat manifest with your ancestor's signature on the day they came through Ellis Island. But here's the thing I want to say. Let me see you. Irish and Italian people, raise your hand. Oh, yeah, that's what we're talking about. Irish and Italian people. Can I say something to you? If you don't know this already, when you go home for dinner tonight, you might bring this up for conversation, because most of you who are Irish or Italian, if you came over late 1800s, early 1900s, your ancestors were treated horribly. What happened to them is they lived in poor city slums. They didn't live where you live, I guarantee you. They did not have what you have. They were told often by the people that they were trying to move into those neighborhoods, they were told to leave. And the Irish especially were thought of as poor scum that should go back to Ireland. How dare we then tell new people to this country they don't belong here? If they came here legally, they have every right to be here just like you. I guarantee you, if anybody is in love with your ancestors, you're proud of your great-great-grandparents, can I tell you what? They are not looking down from heaven on you, saying, yeah, you tell them. Because that's what they went through. How dare we do that? Is anyone sitting here, I doubt it, but is anyone sitting here 100% Native American Indian? Do we have anyone who's 100% Native American Indian? No. Can I tell you what? Here's the funny thing about that comment. When we tell people to go back, do you know what? If everybody went back who wasn't originally from here, everyone in this auditorium would have to leave. Every one of you would have to get back on a boat and head out. Because the only people who were originally from here were Native American Indians. Be careful about how you think. I was in a high school, listen to me now. I was in a high school just like this one. And except it was juniors and seniors I was talking to, like I'll be talking to this afternoon. And was one senior, after my talk, some of you will want to come up and talk to me. And this one did. The senior's walking towards me, but he's huge. He looks like this huge linebacker dude. He's just huge. And I'm looking at him come at me, and he looks pretty ticked off. And I'm like, uh-oh. So he comes walking up to me, and he says, hey, Mr. Grossman, I'm really mad. And I said, hey, I'm sorry, man. And he's like, no, I'm not mad at you. It was a great talk. He said, I'm just mad because I know what it's like. I said, have you been homeless before? He says, no, I'm not homeless. He said, I'm a Muslim. And all the Christians are telling me I believe in the wrong God and I'm going to hell. What ignorance. And what really gets me is I'm a Christian, and I was just so ashamed of that because that's not what our religion teaches. In fact, I want to tell, anybody here a Christian? I want to just say to all of us Christians, did you know what? Jesus was not a Christian. He was a Palestinian Jew. Now there's irony for you. There's irony. He was a Palestinian Jew. Be very careful. I'll tell you right now, two of the most important things to John Grossman, my flag and my faith. But in America, I believe that two misused things to cover up prejudice is often religion is so misused in this country. And so is the flag. Please don't use your patriotism or your faith to cover up prejudice and hatred. And I know what many of you are thinking. You're like, but what's the big deal about all this? What's the big deal? See, here's what I believe. I think that too many of us here are very insecure. I believe that's why a handful of us, when I was saying serious things, you started laughing. There's a handful of people sitting in this auditorium. When I said something sad or serious, you turned to your neighbor and you started laughing. There were actually 3 guys that I qualified as they were giggling. And I don't get that very much, honestly. I don't see many people giggle when I say something serious, which tells me there's some very insecure people here. How many of you remember middle school? How many of you were ever told this before? Maybe your parents or teachers said, enjoy your years at middle school. They're going to be some of the best years of your life. And you're like, oh my God, no. Because you're like, oh, if this is as good as it gets, I'm in big trouble because this isn't very good, you know. In middle school, and I'm sorry, I'm not to mean to pick on freshmen, but even freshman year, it can be tough. It can be very tough freshman year in middle school because there's so many immature, insecure people at school. And we want to be someone else other than ourselves. So here, I got to jump up on stage here. And so in middle school, even freshman year, there'll be some guy sitting in class like this. I'm sitting in class, I'm not on a toilet. And they'll be sitting in class, and they're sitting there thinking to themselves, God, I hate being short. I hate being short. Why don't I grow? I'm never going to grow. God, I wish I could be like the guy back there. Man, he's huge. I hate being short. You know what? I want to play basketball, but the coach won't even look at me. I'm the best dribbler out there. I could dribble right between their legs. But they won't even look at me because I'm so short. I hate being short. I hate my life. And some guys who are tall, they think different thoughts. You think just because someone's tall, they got a great life. Yeah, you're right. Just because they're tall, their life is great. You're right. So there's some guy who's huge sitting in class, and he's thinking thoughts like this. Dang, why are my arms longer than my legs? What the heck happened here? I'm so huge. I can't stand being so tall. You know what? Just because I'm tall, my dad tries to live his life through me. See, my dad, he didn't get to play basketball. Now that I'm so tall, my dad wants me to play. I have to play because he wants me to. I hate basketball. I just want to go home and play PS2 for crying out loud. But I got to play. The coaches insult me too. He tells me I don't have to dribble the ball. They should get the guy in front to dribble the ball. He's a good dribbler. I don't dribble the ball. He says, stand under the basket. We'll throw the ball to you. God, it's so humiliating. I wish I wasn't so tall. And it's not just guys who get insecure about their body or their life. Sometimes it's girls. Oh, yeah. There'll be some girl walking the hallway going, oh, I'm having such a bad hair day. Oh, I can't stand having curly hair. I got to, wake up 2 hours early before school to try and straighten up my hair. Then I get to school, and it freezes out all over the place. God, I hate my life. Yeah, you're right. You got bad hair, so you might as well hate your life. You're right. And then this girl with bad hair days, she's looking at other girls down the hallway, and there's some girl looking like Barbie walking the hallways. You know what I'm talking about, this long, gorgeous hair, and she's actually, her body, let's say, has developed in all proportion. And this girl's like, oh yeah, check it, oh, I wish if I had her body, then I'd be happy. Yeah, you're right, trade bodies, then you'll have a happy life. And that girl with that great body and that great hair and that great face is walking the hallways, and she's depressed. She's having a great hair day. But what she's thinking are very different thoughts. She's thinking thoughts like this: I miss my mom. See, my dad left us when I was younger, so my mom's a single parent, and she's got to go to work all by herself, so I hardly see her. I hardly see my mom. I trade my looks and my body if I could just have her mom. And it goes on, and it goes on, and it goes on. Too often, too many of us sitting in this auditorium, the reason that we're unhappy or insecure or struggling or in pain is because we have not yet accepted our life or our body yet. And when you do, your life will dramatically change. And here's what I have learned. When you like who you are not going to be making fun of people because you don't have to anymore. The people who more often than not are ripping on people and being a jerk to people are the people who don't really like who they are, and in making fun of, putting someone else down, they get to move up the social ladder. And there's way too much of that going on here. I suggest to you, learn to accept your life and your body and work on the stuff you actually got control over. Now here's the reason I'm here today. One of the reasons I'm here is a theory that I have. And my theory is this: there is a direct link to bullying, being made fun of, being teased, not liking who we are, and serious drug use. Serious drug use is linked to low self-esteem and all the rest. Because I've learned that there are people, I used to be a high school teacher at a military academy. You want to see a tough school, you can come to the school I taught in. all boys military school. You want to see tough. You want to see machismo. There you go. And at this all-boys school, there were some of the same problems that exist right here at Governor Livingston. And you know what we find is that people in pain will sometimes get drunk or high to cover their pain. You know that. It's a fact. You know it. So guess what? The problem with alcohol and drugs is this. I'm going to be straight with you. I'm not going to say, just say no. We know that's a great campaign right till 5th grade. And then you better say something else besides just say no. So I'm going to give you a straight message that you may not have heard before. I'm not going to tell you what it does to your mind. I'm not going to tell you what it does to your body. I'm going to tell you what it doesn't do for you. What drugs and alcohol does, first, is when you're drunk or high, your life feels great. Your life feels great. We all know that. That's why we do it, because we want to leave this reality that we're in and go visit Fantasyland, and as long as we're drunk or high, then our problems don't seem so bad. Problem. When you sober up, and when the high wears off, your problem still exists. When you sober up, your dad is still slapping your mom around. When you come off your high, your parents are still getting divorced. When you sober up, you're still not doing well at school. You still don't fit in. Your boyfriend is still treating you like a jerk. The problem, and here's what's brand new maybe to you, the problem with drugs and alcohol, to me, the biggest problem, isn't just what it's going to do to your brain or to your body. What the main problem is, it's not going to solve your problem. And you know what you do then? You will do what my best friend did. When marijuana isn't working anymore, you've used it for a year, and you still aren't happy with your life, and you still want to leave reality for a while, the marijuana that used to work doesn't work the same anymore. You've become bored with it, so you might do what my friend did, and you go to a better drug. And so the drug of choice where I come from, the suburb of Chicago, a very wealthy suburb of Chicago, the drug of choice amongst teens your age is heroin. And so all of a sudden people are using heroin, as my friend did. And then you start combining that with a little alcohol use. And you go further and further until 2 years later, what started out as just a weekend good time is all of a sudden something you need to get going in the morning, like it happened for my friend. And then, of course, you know what? Not everyone will die. Oh, it's true. Some of you have already lost friends in car accidents due to drunk driving. It's true. Some of you have lost friends. I'll never forget the wake I went to, where a group of girls all huddled together and said, oh, this was terrible. Our friend died, and of course, the driver almost never dies. The drunk driver almost never dies. It's almost always the passenger next to you. Sometimes the driver too. In this case, both died. And this girl said to her friends at the wake, down eating a cookie and drinking some coffee, and they all start praying together and saying, oh, we'll never do this. Let's promise never to drink and drive again. One girl even promised never to drink again until she was legally able to do so. And I was standing there at that wake with these girls. And of course, 2 weeks later, they were drinking and driving again. It's so easy to say things. It's another thing to change our lives. Or you can end up like my friend Mike. You can end up like my friend Mike, who last year died in a drug-induced coma. And the weird thing is about my friend is he used to be a speaker on the circuit with me. He'd go around and talk to groups like this because he had beaten his alcohol problem. He was an alcoholic very early on, and he, like so many people who become serious abusers, had a great story to tell. His story was one, I won't even tell the details because your teachers would never invite me back. I'll just tell you that he was seriously abused by his father in horrible ways, tied up in a basement, and that's all I need to say to tell you that if you want to make someone an alcoholic, man, he had the story to explain it to you. And he kicked that alcohol problem. For 6 years, he had beaten the alcohol habit. And then all of a sudden, he had experienced terrible pain in his life, and he went back to his dependence on what he knew, except this time it became an addiction to painkillers mixed with alcohol, until he ended up in a drug-induced coma and died alone in an apartment found days later. I am here not just as some motivational speaker. I'm not here to scare you. I am here to talk straight with you. And if you think this is some game, If you think this is just some silly get-up I do to have a good time, you've missed the point. I do have a theory. My theory is that too many people are using alcohol and drugs to cover up the crap of their life. And I'm here to tell you that if you want to deal with the crap of your life, alcohol and drugs isn't going to solve it. I will tell you what will solve it, though. Here's what will solve it, and you already know it. Anyone here an athlete? Hands, athletes? If you're an athlete, you'll have no problem finishing this phrase, because coaches say this all the time. I'll say the first part of the phrase, you say the second part. And your coaches tell you this when it comes to working out. When it comes to training, your coach says this: no pain, no gain. We all know it. We know it when it's in the weight room. We know it when we're training. Now I'm going to suggest to you, I'm going to challenge you to apply it to your lives. The strong men I have met and the strong women I have met in my life are men and women who experienced terrible pain and troubles in their life, but they faced it. They didn't medicate from it. They didn't escape from it. They faced the crap of their life head on, and that pain made them strong people. I know another person, though, who escaped it. I'm going to call him Bill. His name was not really Bill, but there's no way I'm going to use his real name, even though you would never know him. But out of respect to him and his family. Bill was only an 8th grader. He wasn't like my friend Mike, who died at 40. This kid was an 8th grader. And this 8th grader, he was overweight. And you better believe that in middle school, you know how insecure we are. He got made fun of every day because of his weight. Oh, but it was just a joke. It's never a joke to the person who's listening to it. So he got called these names over and over, and then Bill made a terrible mistake. He went home to his father's bedroom, and he got a gun. And Bill went to school, and he walked into the gym locker room, and he put a bullet through his own head so he wouldn't have to hear the stupid jokes anymore. I said that Bill had made a terrible mistake, and he did. The terrible mistake he made was giving up on his life because, see, 8th grade, my God, so much is going to change. Even freshman year, even sophomore year, so much is going to change for you. Bill gave up on his life, and that was a huge mistake because by the time you get to be a senior, people get mature. They grow up. You don't see many seniors behaving that way, and by college, it's over. Gentlemen, there is a reason why girls want to date older guys. And the main reason is they want someone who has grown up and knows themselves. You don't have to leave. We got a couple more minutes, unless you want to go to class. Bill, a few teachers may have to switch, though, so say goodbye, teachers. Bye, teachers. Bill gave up too early. The reason girls like dating older guys is because they got their stuff together. They know who they are. Little boys tease. And by the way, little girls gossip. Oh, girls, we're not so different. Girls might not be shoving in the hallways. Oh, but ladies, we are so good at destroying reputations sometimes. Sometimes we can be so cruel. The movie Cruel Intentions wasn't so far from the truth that suggested men and women can partner together to be very mean and cruel. What I want to say to you is, if you're grown up, if you got it together, Bill did not wait till that time. Instead, Bill ended his life. But here's the part of the story you'll never read about in the newspaper. I'm going to tell you the part you'll never see in the news. What happened the next day at that 8th grade, I'm going to tell you. What they did at that 8th grade the next day is they put a poster on his locker. Very bizarre. Put a poster on Bill's locker. And then all these 8th graders came by the locker, and they started writing all these nice things all over Bill's locker, all over the poster. The reason they did that is they wanted to take that poster to the wake. They bring the poster to the wake and they put it next to the coffin. The father standing there by his son, his dead son, and by the poster. But the principal comes to pay his respects. Here's the part of the story you would never hear. Comes to pay his respects, and the principal's talking to the dad. They're standing by the poster, and the principal's looking at the poster, and principal's, well, this is a very nice tribute to your son. And the father says, it really is. But then he says to the principal these words. He says, I only wish they would have said those things to my son when he was still alive, because now it's too late. I only wish they would have said those things to my son when he was still alive, because now it is too late. It doesn't ever have to be too late at Governor Livingston, ever. I once left a school and I got an email from a school and they said they had put posters on certain kids' lockers. They weren't going to wait till it was too late. You know the students at this school who don't feel like they fit in for one reason or another. You know the students here who maybe lack social skills. They don't know how to make the connections naturally like you know how to make. I double dog dare anyone sitting here today who thinks you're a leader. Don't wait till it's too late. Don't become part of the problem in destroying someone's life. Reach out and make a difference. Reach out and make a difference. I know some of you are saying, though, you're thinking to yourself, this is so lame. Oh, it's one of those make a difference speeches. Here we go. It's one of those go be a good Samaritan talks. And you think it's not macho, it's not cool. So I got to tell you about macho people who made a difference. Some of you might follow high school football. I want to tell you about a high school football game that happened in Ohio about 4 weeks ago that ESPN has been carrying over and over, and I just got an article that was written about it. High school football is huge in Ohio. People take it pretty darn seriously over there in the Midwest, as they probably do out here is my guess. And out there was a team with a boy, and that boy, get this now, this boy in all of his years of high school football never ever missed a practice and was never late. Never missed a practice and was never late. But here's the amazing thing. This boy lacked a particular chromosome, which is the leading factor of mental retardation. This boy who showed up at football practice every day and never was late, he was mentally retarded. You think about all the lame excuses we have for not taking personal responsibility in our lives. And then you listen to this boy who was mentally retarded, who never missed and was never late. But here's the weird thing. He was never allowed to play in a game. All of his years of high school, all the practices he went to, he was never allowed to play in a game. What's weird is he didn't do it for the reward of playing. The only reason he kept showing up was so that he could be part of something bigger than himself, and he'd never get to play. When I listen to all the people who whine and complain, who sit on the bench, here's a kid who never saw a play in a game ever. But he wanted to be part of that team. So when it came time to be the last game this boy would ever sit on the bench for, the coach wanted to put him in for one play at the end. So the coach calls up the coach of the other team before the game ever happens. And he says, this is the last game this boy will ever see. I've told you about this boy. I want to put him in. If the game is not on the line, I want to put him in on the last play of the game. But I need your boys to know what's going on because he can't be hit. We're going to hand him off the ball, and we're going to coach him all week to just take a knee. Just don't hit him. The coach agreed. This coach was cool. He could have said, oh, no way, we're playing football. But he wasn't a jerk because he understood. He had compassion. So it comes time for the game, and this coach and the coach of the other team, it was their team that was headed to the playoffs, not the team with this boy on it. Well, it comes time for the game. It's a blowout. It's a shutout. This coach is going to set a record shutout. He's going to go back to his school with people cheering and screaming on a shutout, a huge shutout that's going to bring them right into the playoffs. They're going to set a school record. So it comes time for the last play of the game. Obviously, it doesn't matter if the kid takes a knee now, but the timeout is called by the coach. He walks to midfield and he says to the coach, are we still on? You guys are creaming us. It doesn't matter now, this last play. Can he just take a knee? The guy wasn't asking for much. He said, we've coached him all day. He's just going to take a knee. And the coach said, I talked it over with my boys, and we're not okay with that. He says, what are you talking about? It's a blowout. He says, I talked to my boys, and they're not comfortable with that. My boys aren't comfortable unless we let your boys score. This is the most ridiculous thing we've ever heard, this boy not being able to play a game, not one play, and we're going to make him take a knee? No way. The only way we let this happen is your boy scores. And he says, but we'll ruin your shutout. He says, who the hell cares about the shutout? He says, we better call the refs over. Make sure they are on top of this. They call the refs over so they can make sure this boy doesn't get hit. The refs could have been jerks. They could have said, well, according to IHSA rules, screw IHSA rules. Once in a great while, what matters are the kids. Do you remember seeing that goofy video of those parents getting in a fist fight? That one guy kicking that woman at the football game over their kid's game? Are you kidding me? Finally, we got a football game, and they understand what the point is. It's about the kids. The referee says, of course, we'll make sure everything's fine. Well, then anybody here who knows football are going to find this humorous, because the boy gets sent in. Remember, he was coached all week, though, to take a knee. His coach says, no, go ahead and run the ball. Well, it comes time for the play. The ball is hiked. The defense blows open a huge hole. You don't hear that very often. The defense blows open a huge hole, and this boy gets handed the ball, and he does what the coach said. He starts running through the hole, but then he gets confused. There's actual videotape of this that ESPN has shown. I've not seen it yet. I've just heard it described. He goes running through the hole, but then he gets confused, so he starts walking back the wrong way because he had been coached to take a knee. And with the ball in his hand, all of a sudden the defensive players start pointing and yelling towards the end zone. No, run that way, run that way. Now both teams are yelling, run that way. The refs are coaching the kid to go that way. The kid starts running, jogging towards the end zone with both the offense and the defense guiding the way, and the stadium just goes nuts, crazy, cheering and roaring. And that kid has this huge smile, I'm told, when he scores his touchdown. And the fun part of it, the kid thought that he'd won the whole game for the team. He thought he had turned the whole thing around. And you know what? Who cares? Because you know what? Maybe he did win the game. Maybe for just one moment, one play, he showed everybody what this whole thing is about. It's about the people. It's about the people. So you want to tell me, I dare one of you to come up to me afterwards and tell me this is all warm and fuzzy stuff and it's lame. I dare you, because I'll tell you what, that day in Ohio, there were hundreds of people, at least 22 pretty big varsity football players who broke open their hearts in compassion and didn't make fun of someone who was mentally retarded or deficient in any way, but held him up with dignity and respect. Because that's what matters in this world. And if more of us had that kind of compassion as those 22 tough guys on the field that day, this could become a different school. This could become a different country. We got to remember, it is cool to be compassionate. Now, I don't want no bumper sticker because they'll become lame. But I'm just telling you straight out, tough people who know who they are, who like themselves and feel secure, can be kind and compassionate and caring. And that means we won't drive people to medicate themselves to cover up their pain. Listen, once in a great while, someone is compassionate to me. You saw me dressed up with this wonderful coat, and at one point in the talk, you saw me say, "Can I take my coat off? It's hot in here." And they said, "Sure." They always do. I've said that. It's not really that hot in here. I've said that, well, yeah, maybe it is. That's why they got doors open. 250,000 people have heard me say, "Can I take my coat off? It's hot in here." 250,000 people. And so far, one person has come up and helped me with my coat. Now, I don't expect anyone to. It would be very awkward to come and do that. But I was in a church one time, and a woman comes out of a church pew and starts walking towards me. I said, "Can I take my coat off?" They said, "Sure." Here she comes. I'm looking at her thinking, what's she doing? She comes up to me and she says, "Mister, can I help you with your coat?" I'm like, "Sure." She takes my coat off. She puts it nice on the church pew. She sits back down. I made a big deal of how great she was. After my talk, she comes up to me and she says, "Can I tell you why I helped you with your coat?" I said, "Yeah, please tell me why you did that. It's very rare." And she said, "Because my daughter is physically disabled. She goes to school in a wheelchair." She said, "You know how many times my daughter has been laughed at while she tries to take her coat off and put it up in her locker? You know how many people stare at my daughter because she's in a wheelchair?" She said, "I couldn't let that happen to you like it's happened to my daughter." When you understand, those football players got it. That mom who helped me with my coat, she understood. When you understand, you have compassion, and when you have compassion, you treat people with respect and dignity. And that's what we need in this school. More compassion, which comes from understanding. We've got to get rid of our prejudice. We just have to. I was once with some friends. I'm embarrassed to say. You may have noticed, by the way, I'm a white person. Yeah, it's kind of a giveaway. Well, I was standing around with some white friends of mine some years ago when I was younger, and me and my white friends are talking with each other, and all of a sudden one of my ignorant friends points down the Walmart aisle, and they're like, "Check it out. Look at that." I said, "Look at what?" "It's those Mexicans." I go, what are you talking about, those Mexicans? Look at, they said, you ever notice those Mexican people? They stand around with people of their own kind. I go, what? And they said, listen, they're talking that Spanish. I bet it's code. I start laughing, like you're laughing. I start laughing. They go, what's so funny, Grossman? I go, you got to be kidding me. And they said, what's so funny? I said, you're so ignorant. They said, what are you talking about? They do that. They get around with people of their own kind. They talk their own language. I said, can I just take a time out? They said, what? I said, check it out now. We're all white people. Of the same kind, hanging out, talking our own language. Are we talking code right now? How can we be so, hey, listen, because I'm going to get an email from some teacher here who's going to say, are you suggesting students shouldn't learn English? No. Of course people should learn English when they come to this country. For their own sake, you want to make it in this country, you better learn English. But does that mean we got to stop talking the language of our forefathers and mothers? How many of you know some Irish and Italian? Not just the swear words. You know some Irish? Anybody know Polish still? Any people know they're Polish, huh? Yeah. Should we give up our own language just because we got to learn English? That's ignorant. We got to, you speak what?
I speak Albanian.
Albanian. Hey, proud of it too, I'm sure. A proud Albanian. Way to go. Listen to me. Listen to me. We got to stop our prejudice, but you know what's weird? 250,000 people I've spoken to, 250,000, you know how many people have come up to me and been this compassionate? It's so hard for someone to come up to me if they don't know what I really am. But actually 33 people have now, I can count them, there's that many. 33 people have come up to me and talked to me, conversed with me before they ever knew that I was play acting. 33. Half of them were other homeless people on the street. Almost all of them were minorities, almost all. One time, when it was a very, very, very wealthy suburb. It's the third wealthiest county in the United States, out where I live in DuPage County. And I'm in a very, very wealthy town outside a wealthy church. And I'm sitting in the grass outside the church. I'm just sitting there. It was a riot. All of a sudden, this never happened to me before, ever. This teenage girl, because everyone else walks right past me, you know. Some people are nice, they smile. Some people pretend I'm not there. Some people point and say nasty things. This teenage girl didn't walk by. She came down and she sat right next to me. I'm like, oh, this is odd. Most teenage girls don't find me to be that safe or that attractive dressed up like this. So I'm sitting there and this girl says to me, not what do you want, not what are you doing here. She says to me, do you ever feel like people look through you like you don't exist? I said, sometimes. She said, that's how I feel at this church. I didn't know what she meant until we walked inside the church. We walked inside the church, and I looked at everybody sitting there, and I looked at her, and I'm like, oh, because everybody sitting in that church, they were all white people. That one teenage girl to come sit next to me, she was the only African-American person in the whole group. I had a boy once come up to me and say, I know what it's like. I said, how do you know? He says, because I've had my license. I've had my license for 6 months. I've been pulled over 4 times. I said, that's not good. He said, you know how many tickets I got? I said, 4? He said, none. It's just that I'm one of the few Hispanics that live in my town. And they check me out to make sure I'm not up to anything. We've got to be really careful. Listen, all of us can get nervous around people that look different than us, but please be cautious. Don't be acting on your prejudice. Be very careful about it. One more time, I was at a beef sandwich, eating a beef sandwich, barbecue sauce dripping all over my lips. It was a beautiful thing. And a few days earlier, someone gave me $20, and they said, give it to someone who needs it. I don't know why I took it. I'll never do this again because I hated the responsibility of carrying 20 bucks around. But there I am eating my beef sandwich, and there's this person sitting next to me talking to himself. And I kind of felt sorry for him, knowing the little bit I know about mental illness. I felt really bad for this guy. He's talking to himself, and he's counting his money. He seems poor. He seems like he's struggling. I don't know. I thought, oh, I'll give him the 20 bucks. But I thought to myself, I can't just go up to him and say, you count really loud and weird. I feel sorry for you. Here's 20 bucks. That would be rude and disrespectful, obviously. So I couldn't think of anything, so I went to the bathroom. How many of you, be honest now, you have had great thoughts in the bathroom? Isn't that weird? I mean, I've known people who can write an entire paper sitting in the bathroom. I don't know what that is. So anyways, I go to the bathroom. I go to the bathroom, but no good thoughts came to me, not one. But I washed my hands, thank you. Can I just say, I saw this terrible study where like 40% of teenage boys do not wash their hands before leaving the bathroom. Guys, that's disgusting. I want to like bring latex gloves into the bathroom, you know, it's disgusting. Gentlemen, wash your hands. All right, end of public service announcement. So, I leave the bathroom and I'm going to leave because I can't think of how to give this poor guy 20 bucks. So I go to the door and I go to hit the exit door to leave, and all of a sudden the guy I felt sorry for, he calls out to me. Which isn't how I was going to play this. I was leaving. That guy I felt bad for, he calls to me, says, buddy, come here. So I go walking back over to him, and I'm like, yes, sir? And he says, are you okay? It totally threw me off because I felt bad for him and he's worried about me. He says, are you okay? Yeah, I said, yeah, I'm fine. He says, no, you're not. I said, I'm not. He says, no, you can't be. That coat's terrible. And it really is. He gives me directions. He gives me directions on where to go find a new coat. Where to go find a new coat. Here's the guy I wanted to help, and he's helping me. So I take the direction. I'm like, I got to tell this guy who I really am. I got to break character, tell him who I am so that I can make a difference for this guy. So I said, buddy, I got to tell you about myself. He said, no, you don't. I said, well, no, I got to explain something to you about who I really am. He says, no, you don't. I understand. And before I could stop him, he says, my mom is dying of cancer. But my mom has no health insurance. So I tried taking care of my mom myself, but I lost my job. So now I don't have a job and my mom is dying. So mister, you don't have to tell me about your life. I get it. Man, when you understand because you've lived a difficult life, you will begin to have much more respect for people who struggle. So then all of a sudden I got this gift. I got this gift where great ideas can fall out of my brain and out my mouth. Anybody else got this gift? But sometimes it gets you in trouble? Yeah. So all of a sudden out of my mouth came these words. I said, well, mister, hardly anyone's ever nice to me. And a few days ago, someone gave me 20 bucks. I'm supposed to give the $20 to the first person who's nice to me. You, sir, just won $20. Congratulations. It was so cool because instead of it being a charity case for his difficulties, I let him win a contest for his compassion. Listen to me. In my experiences, I have learned that the people that we want to put down and judge, they aren't who you think. I have like 2 minutes. I have 2 minutes? I've got 2 minutes. To end with this last story, and it's the most important story I can tell you. It's not about a homeless person. It's not, but it is someone I got to share it with. And I ask you to all look up here and let me tell you this story. I need a drink of water before I do this. For those of you who know the person I'm about to talk about, please don't say who it is. This boy, his name is Edward. He was 6 years old. And when he was 6 years old, he went to school like we all do, but he was placed in speech therapy classes because he couldn't talk very well. But because he was in special classes, people would kind of rip on him, you know. He was also very quiet and shy. He'd walk the hallways of a school like this, with his head down in shame. He was very withdrawn. He lacked the self-esteem that I'm talking about today. When he got to 8th grade, his grades were so terrible, they were supposed to hold him back a year. But he had one teacher. Here's why I'm so glad there were teachers standing here today. He had one teacher who said, no, we've got to work with this kid. He's got real potential. And this one teacher reached out. Teachers, you know what? The best part of your job can be, and those of you who've been around for more than 10 years know it. You're here to teach the academics, no question. I came from a college prep school, and what you do academically is huge for this kid's future. But I will suggest to you that what you also do as a teacher is you don't see a finished product in front of you. What you see in front of you is the potential future leaders of this world. So you don't look at them as what they are, but who they might become. And our jobs as teachers isn't just to teach the content, but to teach the character that goes along with it and to help them become what they're destined to become. That's what makes a very awesome teacher. You know you're an awesome teacher because or administrator, because you will know it when a student comes back 10 years and says, thanks for kicking me in the behind when I needed it. Thanks for being on my back. Thanks for reaching out and caring when no one else did. It's weird. Sometimes a teacher, a principal, a dean of students can be tough, and you'll hate them for 4 years and come back 10 years later and say, thanks. If it wasn't for you, I would have never gotten the job I got. So thank you for doing what you all do. But listen to me. This kid, Edward, he had all that going against him but one teacher. One teacher who saw the potential and said, no, we're going to work hard on this one. They worked hard on Edward. And he made it to the graduation ceremony of 8th grade. And at the graduation ceremony, he won an award. And you're thinking, what kind of an award does a kid like Edward win? He can't make eye contact. He was in speech therapy. What's he win? He won an award for being the quietest kid of his 8th grade class. That's the big award he won. But he graduates 8th grade, but he's depressed. He is scared to death of what high school will mean for him. He starts having thoughts like that kid Bill I told you about with the poster. But I would never end my talk depressed. I will not end my talk with a bad story. This kid made a different choice. I will say to you, a better choice. Edward didn't end his life. He worked hard on himself. He didn't medicate himself. He didn't bully around other people so he could feel better about who he was, so he could move up the social ladder. He just worked hard with the pain of his life. And 2 years later, he was a sophomore. 2 years later, the kid who should have never graduated 8th grade was a sophomore in high school, and he hit the honor roll because he worked hard on himself. 4 years later, he's a senior. 4 years after 8th grade, he's a senior in high school. And the kid who couldn't look up from the hallways, all of a sudden started performing in theater productions on a stage in front of hundreds of people. He graduates high school to go to college, the kid who wasn't supposed to graduate 8th grade. He goes to college. And the kid who was in speech therapy and special classes and laughed at because he couldn't talk real well, in college, he made a decision to join the speech team. And he started competing on the speech team. And he started winning awards at the collegiate level for his speeches. That kid, Edward, he grew up to become me. Edward is my middle name. I'm the kid. I'm the kid who was in speech therapy because I could not talk very well. I am the kid who was so quiet and shy I couldn't look up from the hallway. I'm the kid in 8th grade who wasn't supposed to graduate. And I'm the one, believe it or not, who won an award for being the quietest of my 8th grade class. My mom kept that award. You notice how your moms keep stuff in boxes and closets and attics, you know? My mom kept that award. And see, I left my teaching position at Marmion Military Academy to start my own company. And when I became president of my company, I took the award from my mother and I had that sucker framed. It now sits in my office, to John Grossman, the Quietest Award, now sits in my office from where I book speaking engagements across the country. So I say to you, I am living proof. Don't ever give up on your life. And second of all, don't ever medicate yourself from your problems. Face your pain head on. Face your pain head on. Never forget Ray, the homeless guy who taught us to not judge anyone, not even ourselves, because when you open up the book, you might find a human being inside deserving of dignity and deserving of respect. Thank you very, very much.
All right, I'd just like to thank John for coming and sharing his story today to make our school a better place, so thank you, John.